Hello everyone, I'm here with a new general front update. I'll start with talking about some new geolocations that I'll be doing. Other than that, I'll be talking about updates on the front line, a quick analysis of what is happening, and finally, my assessment of the column that has been discovered around the Kherson region. Now, first, if we look at these points that I have placed, it is based on geolocations done on different positions, including Russian different positions and so on. First of all, there is geolocated location of Russian forces here at the border between Mykolaiv and Kherson, which means that in this area, Russia has indeed reached the borderline of the two regions, which means that the Russian map is more accurate in this area. Easternwards, there are reports of a Russian tank spotted near Nevelske, which the Russians are fighting at right now, and that is proven by this tank's location. There are Ukrainian positions north of Pisky, right at the edge of this of the village, which means that most likely they are still fighting in this area before they're pushing towards Vodiane. Further north at the Izium area, there is reports of a geolocated position of a Russian base in Rakove. So that's it for the geolocations. Then I'll go on to the frontline updates, where there are reports of Russians fighting and pushing in this area north of Kherson towards Mykolaiv, where they are trying to get control over this highway, which will allow them to push further into Mykolaiv in the future, in a future invasion that I'll talk about more later on in this video of Mykolaiv. On the Zaporizhia front, they are still fighting at Pulyai-Pole, which is a significant city on the rail route towards Zaporizhia from Mariupol as well as Melitopol. And finally, here in the Donetsk region and Seversk region fronts, there are reports of fighting at Opytne as well as this military base here and Vodiane, which means that most likely the Russians are fighting from either the south or circling around from the north. One of these two, as the Ukrainian position is being back here, means that they're most likely going around rather than straight through them, as they haven't passed through the Ukrainian defenders. And finally, around the Siversk front, fighting is still ongoing, but with the capture of Bilohorivka, there are reports of the Russians attacking from it towards the villages to the north, Ivanodarivka, Vayimka, and Vesele. That's it for the front update. Now, as for the column that there have been reports about, there are reports of the column, I think it is possibly in this area around Pervomaiske, but I'm not sure. There's been no geolocation on it so far. However, it is most likely here, as in the video you can see that there are some forests and hills. I'll put the link in the description for the video. There are some trees or some elevation that shows that there's a topographic gap, and this area here actually is somewhat of a very small valley, which means that it could be in this area. And it being here means that their goal is most likely to attack Mykolaiv from the north, while at the same time there are reports that the Russians are moving towards Lupareve in the south, which means that they are engaging in a pincer maneuver to cut off the Mykolaiv defenders, Ukrainian defenders at Mykolaiv, from the supply lines that we can see here, highways to the east, and then there's the rail from the north and the west, which are being sabotaged by the bombing of the bridges in Mykolaiv. And then finally, an analysis on the situation. I think that currently we're in a situation where the Russians are trying to open up a new front in the north, And that is because we have seen how they have increased their troop number in Belarus and in Russia, in the border next to Ukraine. And my analysis says that the Russians are most likely to bomb the bridges across the Dnieper River in the north to prevent supplies from reaching the east of Ukraine from the west of Ukraine, while they simultaneously engage in a offensive towards Zaporizhia and Dnipro to cut off the supplies and rail lines across the Dnipro from the south, but not destroy the bridges, as they will be able to use them themselves, and at the same time engage in an offensive to the north from both Chernihiv and Sumy. This way they are able to engage the enemies that have now been cut off from supplies by the bombing of Dnieper River bridges. This hasn't happened. This is my analysis for what may happen in the future. If they use this strategy, they're able to push towards the Dnipro city that crosses the Dnieper River, and then push towards Mykolaiv and Odessa from the north, cutting off the supplies that come from northwestern Ukraine, and then pushing towards Odessa and Mykolaiv from the north, allowing them to cut off supplies to the cities completely, and thereby allowing them to starve out the cities and siege them rather than storming them, which will kind of make it so that there are way less casualties than if they're storming it, and also allow them to have time on their side, especially in the winter, with how the Russians are able to provide with gas and heating. It gives more leverage for the Russians, or for the Ukrainians in Odessa and Mykolaiv, to surrender to Russia, as they will be able to have food and heating and so on if they surrender, compared to starving and freezing in the cold winter months if they do not surrender, as they have been cut off from supplies from the north. So that's what I think the strategy will be. And looking at the situation with the troop numbers as well as number of planes and helicopters, they are able to conduct this kind of operation, which allows the Russians to have the upper hand in this current situation. Looking at the situation right now in the Donbas region, we see that there's a lot of heavy fighting on the whole front line. And what is most likely happening on the ground is that both the Russians and the Ukrainians are pushing as many of their troops and equipment as possible towards the front line right now to prevent it from moving, as the Ukrainians try to negotiate for more ammunition and training and equipment and so on. And the Russians are just taking their time, as they can unleash the artillery barrages and conduct as many casualties towards the Ukrainians as possible. So this kind of stalemate is actually very bad for the Ukrainians, as it will leave them weaker once the Russians break through. And sure, they will get new arms deliveries. However, that's not what they need right now. What they need right now is to retreat to a better position and reorganize their military, as right now it has suffered a lot of casualties, leaving them in a state of confusion and vulnerable to further Russian incursions. As I see it right now, once the Russians break through this stalemate, they will be able to achieve a lot of ground, just like we saw at Lysychansk and Severodonetsk, as the Ukrainians have suffered a lot of casualties in this current ongoing battle on the front line. So that's it for this video. Quick analysis and update on the front line, the geolocations, as well as updates on the column that has been spotted in the Kherson region next to Mykolaiv. Thanks for watching and have a great day. Subscribe.